Ok, listo.
Igual te avisó Ricardo.
Está bien. Thank you very much for being patient with us. This morning has been a crazy morning, as you all can imagine. We'll go into details, but we want to start by thanking you for being with us and thank you for your patience. We are here in Guatemala City at the headquarters of Prensa Comunitaria here at the Hotel Plaza in downtown Guatemala City, where this community media nonprofit set up their headquarters, their bunker to cover the elections. And we're very glad and very excited to be here with you. Wow, what a night and what a day. Despite all threats, despite all fears, everything went well. The people of Guatemala had a beautiful, beautiful electoral day and night. Oh boy, but let's get started. Let me introduce you with our very special guests, the same Vicky and Megan and myself that we were with you last week before the elections. My name is Marco Castillo. I am the co-executive director of Global Exchange, and I'm very glad to be here with Megan Thomas. It's a political analyst and a social science researcher and development work in Guatemala. She participated in the Guatemala revolutionary movement between 1970 and 1992 and is currently part of FOCO Action Research Collective, working on generating information and analysis for social organizing in Guatemala. Megan, she's joining us over Zoom. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you, Marco.
Also with us, Vicky Gas, Executive Director of LOG, Latin America Working Group, an organization that has over 3 decades advocating with the U.S. government on human rights and rights-based policy in the Americas, in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcos. It's good to be here on such an incredible morning after
Exactly.
elections.
Let's get started. What are your impressions from last night, Megan, please? From yesterday, not last night.
Okay, from yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was a great day. The turnout was maybe not as large as expected, but it's usually smaller on this second round of voting since local government is no longer in play. But there was a festive spirit throughout the city. I went to 3 different voting places in Guatemala City, and it was definitely a festive spirit. And then last night, when Bernardo was congratulating the team of mostly very young people who worked on his campaign, one of the first things he said was, "I've taken off my pin of Movimiento Semilla, and I am now wearing the Guatemalan flag." Because the upcoming tasks are for all of Guatemala, not just for our party.
Exactly.
So I think that was a great way to start off, yes.
Okay. Yes, it is indeed amazing. So right now, with 4,208,985 votes, which represent the total of the valid votes so far, Arevalo is definitely ahead with 58%, with 2,000,000 and over 400,000 votes, while Sandra Julieta Torres Casanova from Unidad Nacional de la Esperanza, or UNE, it's with 37%, with 1.5 million votes. That's an irreversible victory for Bernardo Arevalo. What are your impressions?
I would have to agree with Megan that it was an incredible event and it was a festive event yesterday. But I think what we saw yesterday was a clear victory, a landslide victory of the Semilla party of the now president-elect Bernardo Arevalo. As you said, 58% to 37%. It's going to be difficult to for the corrupt actors, both private and public, in Guatemala to claim that there was fraud in this election. Had the margins been narrower, it would have been a little bit more easier with that discourse, but with this outstanding landslide, that would be impossible. I was also at one of the polling places yesterday watching the voting the counting of the votes, and I have to tell you, it was really incredible. You would hear Semilla, 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 Une. Semilla, 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 Une. Semilla, 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 Une. Semilla, 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 null vote. And that wasn't just from one table, but it was all three tables. And the piles of Semilla votes were incredible. And you could feel it with even some of the people in the room who were the fiscales, the people responsible for monitoring and carrying out the ballot count, the smiles and the hugs and the excitement.
Yeah, people were celebrating since then.
And the hope. Yeah. And that was just phenomenal. And then going to the obelisco, where people came from all parts of the obelisco. Is like a roundabout. It has roads coming in from different sides, and you had people swarming into the obeliscos, and they all had Guatemalan flags. And it was a dynamic, multi-generational, euphoric feeling.
Yeah, beautiful. I remember a sign at the obelisco saying, "Now I have a president." Right?
I saw that.
People for many decades felt like they were victims of electoral fraud and they did not feel represented by their authorities. And last night, young folks were probably believing in democracy for the first time in their lives. Many first-time voters. I remember I also went to a couple of voting sites, and in general, as Megan said, people were saying that they didn't have as many voters as they expected, but definitely Semilla showed up. Semilla showed up in big numbers. One of the things that we've heard is that a lot of the rural and indigenous vote, it's basically thinking in their immediate authorities. It's a vote that goes out in the first round because they're voting for their mayor, for their council representatives, and for their other elected officials, and that's why they have a larger representation. In this second one, which is only for president, it's not necessarily something that it's as massive as the first round. But in general, it's overwhelming. The difference between both candidates, it was so large that very early on, it was like the Inter-American Commission recognized, the president of Guatemala recognized the victory. It was a very quick and swift process of recognition. We were worried that we were going to go for days.
Right. And it was actually much quicker than everybody anticipated.
Yes.
And I think the results that we saw yesterday, even though there were some lower voter turnout, and but even more less null and absentee or null and void votes. What we saw yesterday was really a testament to the organizing of Semilla, and you have to congratulate them. They were not anticipating to be in this position on the June 25th, but they organized. And as Megan said, it was a lot of youth and technology that had to play a role in that. It's also a testament to the fact that the Guatemalan people are really fed up with the political status quo in this country. the corruption, the persecution of judicial operators, the persecution of human rights defenders and environmentalists and indigenous peoples, and people voted for a change. And
Yeah.
that's what you heard, as un cambio.
Yeah.
And then the third thing, and this actually, Prensa Comunitaria had done some focus groups early on in December. And people really wanted a change, and they wanted somebody who was not corrupt, and they wanted somebody who was decent and thoughtful and capable.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, Bernardo Arevalo is a decent, honorable family man with no skeletons in his closet, and that's what people voted for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're here this morning talking with Megan Thomas from Foco Collective and Vicky Gas from Blog, and despite this beautiful victory, we got to go and talk about reality. And so, Megan, please tell us what it's ahead for the Semilla movement. What are the challenges for this new government?
Well, the challenges are many. I hope that the core team gets some rest for 2 or 3 days before they have to start taking them on.
Yeah.
But for one, Sandra Torres of UNE, the adversary, has not conceded.
She is not.
She did not concede last night, and what she said was, we will communicate our position tomorrow. So there's been a lot of speculation that they were going to try to cry fraud. 2 hours before the polling booths closed yesterday, she requested a protection order from the courts, alleging that there was going to be problems with the input of the voting data. So she was kind of setting the stage. So that's one. I think another is that this ongoing court case against Semilla, as far as we understand, is kind of at a standstill until October 31st, which is when the electoral period ends officially. So within a couple of months, they're going to face this pressure from the courts, unless these corrupt officials who've been freeing people already convicted on corruption charges and are now persecuting Semilla, alleging that they had false signatures when they registered. So unless these people back down with this new relation of forces, that is something else that is to be expected. And I think that just kind of the panic in all of these people who depend on control of government positions and impunity from friends and cronies in government for their corrupt practices, they're all trying to figure out what their next steps are.
Yeah.
So I think there's a rough 5 months ahead for Semilla.
Yes, I agree. And despite the amount of votes that they got, one of the things that I've heard is that in reality, the Semilla movement is not very, large in its structure, in its formal structure. So they don't have they don't have a huge team, and also building, the government and identifying profiles and making sure that they are working with the right people. It's a challenge to begin with, so it's an interesting challenge. Vicky, do you identify other challenges for this government?
I think you're right, both of you. The ongoing criminalization of Bernardo and the Semilla Party. Rafael Curuchiche of FESI has said that he will move forward today on bringing charges against President-elect Arevalo and also other members of the Semilla Party. I think also that it is going to be a rough 5 months until the inauguration on January 14th, 2024. as Megan pointed out, and part of our demands to members of the international community and the OAS observation mission and the EU observation mission is that they stay until January 14th to help guarantee his ability, the transition, and his ability to be inaugurated on the 14th. Now, President Giammattei, outgoing president, has said that he would support a peaceful transition. He has to say that. You know, what happens is another thing. But guaranteeing that the response that we got from both the OAS and the EU is that they will stay until October 31st.
Yeah.
Well, the OAS until the electoral process is finished. And the EU will evaluate whether they can continue on or not. But it's going to take all of the international community to pressure that this move forward in a peaceful and transparent fashion until January.
Yes, agree. I want to invite our followers and the public in general to watch our previous conversation last week because we discussed the historic background of this election and this conversation today. It's kind of a follow-up for that. But I would like to ask Megan, would you be so kind, please, and give us a little recap of what the last months of the campaign looked like for Semilla, just for the public to understand where are we coming from?
Okay, well, Semilla is a relatively new party. They participated in elections for the first time 4 years ago, and their presidential candidate was not allowed to register. So they actually participated without a presidential candidate, and that is a severe handicap.
Yeah.
So this is only the second election they participated in, and really strategically, they did not think they had any chance at all of being part of the runoff.
Absolutely.
They were hoping to make a significant showing in Congress so that they could be in the legislature over the next 4 years and continue to build the party. But things happened differently. So they had, less than 2 months. They had 7 weeks to unleash a campaign with a small team because they've never had enough funds to work with. The first week after that, the June 25 election was full of challenges, and there had to be a vote recount, so even that took away time. So what they managed to do in 6 weeks, covering nationwide, really, because they got a majority in most of the departments of the country. Right. So this is a new party, and I want to add something, Marco, from what you were saying before. It's a small team, and they kept the party small precisely because they didn't have the funds to do all of these assemblies that the law requires when you're proclaiming candidates. So, for example, in the electoral district of Guatemala City, they have a very small structure, but they have a large following. So in terms of building government, for example, I'd say they have a very large following among progressive professionals and politicians, that go way beyond party boundaries. So yeah. I think that bodes well for setting up a government with people that are trustworthy, that are proven, that have a proven track record, and that are known to Semilla. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, and that's really interesting to me. It's something to look out for. I mean, I think that in general in Latin America, political parties represent a challenge for democracy in many moments in history, and this being a independent citizen-led movement, it's going to be really interesting seeing how it evolves into government. But they're facing, as you said, Megan, big corporate and governmental corrupted structure that it's embedded not only in the executive branch, but in local governments, in the judicial branch. And they have a huge challenge. I'm sure that in the coming months, they're going to hear from all kinds of people trying to negotiate their future with Semilla. And it's also going to be interesting to see how they put in place this promise of ending corruption in Guatemala, which it's definitely a systemic problem. It's not only about, public policy, but it goes beyond that. It's certainly going to take legal reforms and a lot of political will. Who are Bernardo Arevalos' allies beyond the Guatemalan community? Megan, do you identify anyone around the world that he's close to? I know that Mujica gave a beautiful salute in the days leading to the election, but he was a diplomat, so he was, he knows the international community.
Right. He was a diplomat for nearly 20 years, but he's also lived in Europe. He was Guatemalan ambassador to Israel. He speaks 5 languages, among them Hebrew.
Yeah.
So I think he has ties throughout the world. I don't think that'll be an issue. And I think, the world that doesn't pay that much attention to Guatemala is probably happy to hear good news coming out of this part of the world.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
Democracy, progressive government, non-threatening, no threatening extremism here, but solid democratic progressive values and plans. I think the international community will be by his side, and I think he will be able to work with them. He'll know how to do that. So that is very important. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. What about the U.S.? Vicky, what should we be doing or helping or looking for?
I think we need to continue to put pressure the U.S. and the international community to support President-elect Arevalo, not only from now until the inauguration, but beyond that. And not only, and part of that will be, how do you rebuild the institutions that have been co-opted by corrupt private and political actors? But it also has to help him with development plans that go beyond development for export. It has to support development that addresses the structural inequality in Guatemala. And that means helping with combating climate change, supporting inclusive economic development, which guarantees not only employment, but also food security. It means building the infrastructure to have the forward and backward linkages you need for development, which is something very absent here in Guatemala, and it's been part of Arevalo's campaign. So it's not only the U.S. that needs to do that, but it's the international community. They need to provide that support. And in some ways, USAID has a new VOCES program called VOCES, and it's a local initiative that looks at, rather than supporting government entities, it looks to going to supporting local development. Now, how they define development is actually a question, but we need to push them as well to do the right thing here.
Yeah.
And it's not only important for Guatemala and changing the historic trend of this country and marginalization and exploitation of people, but it's important for the region. I mean, this vote yesterday is important, where you have growing authoritarianism in neighboring countries and increased migration to the border. You need to support this democratic, progressive alternative if you want to really change what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. This government, as Megan and you said, it's facing historic corruption, structural, historic inequalities, discrimination, violence, long hope for peace, and this government would not be able to face and overcome these challenges without the support of the international community. It won't be enough. They will certainly need the world's help, and that's what we are here as a mission, and we hope that through us, the public in the U.S. and whoever sees this webcast also feel inspired, motivated to learn more and find ways to work and help Guatemala. There's law and there's Global Exchange and many other organizations that will be working alongside this the people in this new moment, and it's going to be a great history ahead. As you mentioned, a lot of young people voted. They were the big energy behind this election, this vote. I'm almost sure that also indigenous and rural people who were expected not to vote in large numbers, they did also. So they are going to have to now enter this new era of learning how to be a government, learning how to support a government. It's not easy. It's the other side of the coin, seeing reality, working with it, dealing with it, being patient, seeing the big picture, being able to not seeing the change that you hope in the immediate future, but rather just keep working to see the results in the long term. Megan, something else that you want to add as a final thought? Or a final
Well, I think
call?
when we spoke last week, we talked about the energy, how the campaign and Samia had energized, for one, young people, but had energized so many people throughout the country in very far-flung places. And the different ethnicities, the different cultures in this country. And I think that energy now has kind of solidified. I've been receiving messages from friends and people I know throughout the country saying, well, now we start on this new phase. You know, nobody has the attitude of now we're going home and back to our own lives. It's kind of people are expecting a more involved kind of politic. And I think that is very important when we're talking about more progressive politics, more inclusive politics. So I think that bodes well from here, and there will be support if all of these efforts to criminalize Bernardo and Samia and whatever pops up trying to negate their victory. I think people will mobilize, and they're committed to doing it peacefully as well. So I'm very hopeful. Yep.
Thank you.
I think that's absolutely correct, Megan. I think there'll be a groundswell of protest and mobilization should the threats against Bernardo Arevalo and the Samia party, go into action. I also think there will be people, not only the professional community here, but also the people in the diaspora who will play a role, an advisory role. Many of the people who are still under court cases in the country, but many of the justice operators who are in the United States will be providing an advisory role to the government of the president-elect and to the new government. They won't be able to return immediately because they still have open cases against them, but hopefully with change that will happen. I think this is also an opportunity, and I think it's important to mention this, is that it's also an opportunity to get people who have been unjustly imprisoned out of jail and start protecting the rights of journalists and of judges or fiscales who are in jail, such as Virginia La Para and Chepe Zamoro of El Periódico. And I think we'll see a renewed effort, not only here, but also around the globe, to get their release.
Yes.
I'm hopeful for that.
Yeah, we all hope for that. And we all hope for a brighter future for Guatemala. If Megan, do you have anything to add or?
Well, it's been a privilege for me to participate with you. And thank you so much for this wonderful mission you brought to Guatemala, the observant mission. So to Vicky, Marco, and everybody else on that mission, thank you. I think that was it was a very important part of what happened yesterday, of this civic victory.
Mhm. Thank you very much. We've been honored to be part of this, to be able to witness this and bring a little bit of, the eyes of the international community to this process. But we are humble. This is a beautiful country, and we couldn't be anywhere else. Thank you very much, Megan. Vicky?
First of all, just thank you to Global Exchange and also to the team of CESHUL for all their work and support for this process. And just a call to anybody who's watching this, everyone who's watching this, to be vigilant. We will need to speak up to our elected officials, push the Biden administration and members of Congress to protect what could be a really positive change for Guatemala. And it takes all of us to do that. And the lessons we're learning here are also lessons for our own country, and we should take them seriously.
True.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much, and thank to you for watching us. And please share this conversation if you liked it. And I think that we can do a lot just by sharing this videos and letting others know about what's happening in Guatemala and what's behind and what's at stake. Stay tuned. Reach out to the organizations that are working to help Guatemala, and see you on the next one. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye-bye.